Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, Wife, 32F. Told me, 31M. She might be a lesbian. My wife sat me down last night and told me she thinks she's a lesbian. We've been married for 10 years, together for almost 14 and have 2 kids together, 3 and 6. We met on the first day of college, never dated anyone else and got married when we were 21. I'm not going to lie, I'm in a weird place right now and am wondering what I do from here. I'm generally supportive of her finding out who she is and, the longer I think about it, it would explain a lot of our issues over the last several years, but I'm also pretty upset about the whole thing. I kept it together while she was explaining it to me, but, when I went to be by myself for a while, there were some tears. Any thoughts on how I should go forward? I'm so lost. A user in the comments said, "This is a fairly heavy topic, without much to go off other than your brief description. By the sounds of things, you seem to be handling it rather maturely, but of course once children are involved, all things weigh more heavily. You're also married, so that's another tangible you've obviously already pondered on. I feel for you, and the situation you're in. But more details would greatly improve my own, or anyone else's ability to give a helping word. What has your wife suggested she wants? What has gotten her to this determination?" Another user said, "Generally speaking, the only appropriate time for a person to explore their sexuality is while they are single. If she wants to explore, I suggest a divorce. See, there's this trend of potentially gay, bisexual people deciding that they need to explore their sexuality while they're in a relationship, married. They think the fact that they're questioning their sexuality means that it's fair game for them to have gay, bi sex. Posts with this happen on a daily, weekly basis here, so it's definitely a lot more common than the people who will inevitably reply to my post would have you think. These potentially gay, bi people are completely wrong. Of course a committed relationship, marriage is not the time to explore one's sexuality. So, if she wants to explore, then divorce her. The kids will be better off with divorced parents than they would be with unhappy parents." The next one is titled, Update. Wife, 32F. Told me, 31M. She might be a lesbian. My marriage is almost certainly over. In the 15 days since she told me she might be a lesbian, she has consistently been coming home late from work and either going to the bathroom for extreme amounts of time, hours, says goodnight to the kids and goes straight to bed or straight up tells me she doesn't want to hang out after the kids are asleep. I've been taking up virtually all parenting responsibilities since then. I already had 90%, so it wasn't too big of a change, but have really enjoyed my increased time with the kids. We've had a few conversations since then, but it has been all small talk since it seems the only time she will talk to me is when the kids are around. I'm obviously not going to bring this up with them in the room. She has also been texting people from her work a lot more. I've never met any of these people, her daily commute is pretty far, so I've only been to her office once, so I don't know if they really are just new work friends or something else. At this point, I don't think it matters, I just need to get past this moment in time. I've been in a pretty dark place since then. I've basically given up on taking care of myself and very few things are bringing me joy. I'm perfectly hygienic, shower, teeth, etc. But I've stopped working out and have been eating pure crap since then. I basically went from getting ready to compete for a national mountain biking title this summer, to a fat slob that's just trying to get to the next day. I know it will pass once D-Day hits, but the wait and anticipation is eating me alive. I feel like I'm floating along a river, just waiting to hit the rapids that I can see in the distance. I know once I'm on the other side, things will slowly get easier, but I'm having trouble staying positive until then. I keep the happy face with my kids and have really gotten involved with them and they seem to like it, so that's bringing me some joy and that's where I'm keeping my focus until it's all said and done. Thanks for reading and for the advice everyone has shared with me. I'll try to post a few more updates as events develop in the event someone reading has to go through a similar situation as me. There aren't a lot of resources for men who are married to closeted lesbians, so hopefully my story can help others. The next one is titled, Update 2 to the Lesbian Wife Story. My wife and I are starting to split assets and are, in a few hours, going to talk about a custody schedule, which I am metaphorically having a panic attack over. It's super cliché, but my two daughters, 6 and 3, really are my world, 32M. I do 90% of all the child stuff, breakfast, school drop-off, pickup, going to do fun stuff on the weekends, etc. And the idea of not having them for several days a week is paralyzing. I've intentionally left jobs in the past that require me to travel because I don't want to miss all of those great moments. Given that I am going to have to deal with this, there's no way my wife would agree to sole custody, which is probably a healthy stance to have. How do you that are super close to your kids deal with the loneliness when they are gone? A user in the comments said, I have a 6-year-old daughter and have been divorced from her father since she was 6 months old. Every time we swap, my heart sinks and I have trouble sleeping that night. I overthink everything. For instance, if I was stressed out and short with my daughter, it will keep me up all night feeling guilty and sad. Her father has remarried, and she has been blessed with a wonderful stepmother and her 2 children. I parent differently than they do, and at times I circle the drain worrying about their way. But ultimately I just have to focus on the fact that the home situations are different, and each household is doing the best they can, and she is well loved and taken care of. The part that has been surprising to me is just how special our time is together. No, it's not 7 days a week, but knowing that I have less time encourages me to make the days I do have her really count. We have developed such a wonderful relationship that couldn't have come about had her father and I not divorced. It's tough, saying bye each time makes me cry, even for a few days, but there are many positives. You will find your new normal, just hang in there. Like my therapist says, this too shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass. The next one is titled, Update 3, Lesbian Wife Story. I, 32M, recently finished signing divorce papers with my ex-wife, 32F, who came out to me as gay a while back and, thus far, the split has been about as good as a divorce possibly could be. So much so that I have started dating again and have been seeing one particular girl, 28F, for a few weeks now, and it's been going extremely well. We've made out a couple of times, but nothing further than that. Last night, she texted me and asked if I would like to go for a bike ride with her in the evening. I'm a big cyclist and she is not, but does ride casually. She is coming to where I live, which she has never done before, and is roughly an hour away from me. We've only met for dates in the middle so far. This was my first flag that something might happen tonight, but I am not making any assumptions. Then, around lunch today, she texted again and asked if she could make us dinner, flag number 2. Again, I want to emphasize that I am not making assumptions about what will happen tonight and am certainly not going to push anything, but these seem to be pretty strong signals. The thing is, and this is the real meat of my question, I haven't been intimating with anyone since my ex-wife, and I have only had one sexual partner in my life, my ex-wife. I really like this girl and I definitely want to be intimate with her, but it makes me super nervous. How should I handle this? If I sense things are going in that direction tonight, should I say something or just hold it down and try to let my anxiousness subside? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. A user in the comments said, we might be similar. I could only be intimate with women I was dating for a few weeks. Even so, the first time was usually not spectacular. I guess I would recommend you do the same thing I did when I met my wife-to-be. When things seemed like the hot and heavy was inevitable, I sat her down and told her how much I liked her and how much I was attracted to her, but to give me some slack for the first few tries. My wife was awesome about it. We went super slow and built up to the main event over a few nights. Your anxieties will subside as you see that she is into you. I pride myself in my performance in bed, and my wife didn't judge me for the first few times being a bit awkward. If she is a kind person, she'll understand and appreciate your honesty. You'll be her stud in no time if you stay patient and communicate. Good luck. The next one is titled, Update 4, Lesbian Wife Story. The story of my ex-wife and I splitting is a long and complicated one, but the fundamental takeaways are that we split relatively amicably, last February, and we have 2 daughters together, 4 and 7. Additionally, I know she is hardly on speaking terms with much of her close family due to some things she's done. I'd rather not go into details because it was legal trouble, but it was non-violent and safety isn't an issue. We've been friendly, sending the occasional picture of our girls back and forth or sending a funny video from time to time, but, recently, she seems to be making strides to re-enter my life and it feels like she's taking the long approach to courting me again and I absolutely do not want this. It started about a week ago when she asked to come over after picking up our daughters from school. She phrased it as just going over some logistical stuff, but it devolved into her telling me she's looking at doing an outpatient program for depression. She struggles with depression and anxiety. I sort of steered the conversation back to basic logistics and we ended our meet shortly after. Our girls weren't in the room for this. A few days later, she sent me a trailer to a movie that came out asking if I had seen it. I hadn't and said that I'll check it out and she suggested that we watch it together. Honestly, I felt bad for her because of her recent bout of depression so I said that was fine and she came over tonight after our daughters were asleep. It was my night, and we watched it. Throughout the movie she made comments about changes she is making to her life. Things that she knows I'm into, improving fitness, starting running, cycling, etc. After the movie she starts asking me about why a woman I had been seeing had broken up. I gave a terse, but polite response. Immediately after, she tells me she is starting to go to church again. She declared herself an atheist years ago, which was a point of contention in our marriage although not the reason we split, and asked if she could come with me. Again, I said that was fine even though I don't like this idea at all. She's also generally been overly nice to me in the last couple of weeks and it feels weird. I want us to stay on friendly terms for our girls' sake, but I absolutely do not want her in my life any more than is required and I don't like where this feels like it's heading, and I don't know how I should handle it. I'm very poor at confrontation and am afraid if I voice my objections in the wrong way that it will turn our currently workable divorce sour. Can anyone help me with some advice on how to navigate this? I'm sorry that there's so much detail and nuance missing from this post, so feel free to ask any clarifying questions necessary. A user in the comments said, "Blame it on the kids. If she asks to spend time again, say you don't think it's appropriate and would hate to confuse the kids or put them through anymore because of your divorce and that you are so glad you're on such good terms with her and can effectively co-parent after divorce that you don't want to blur any lines for the kids and hope you can keep your conversations based on them and why logistical discussions on neutral ground." Another user said, "If you had a girlfriend or love interest she would be less likely to think about reconciliation. Even a woman that you hung out with and talked to often could work. Perhaps you could come up with something along those lines." The next one is titled, Update 5, Lesbian Wife Story. I'm going to try to make this short. At 5:30 p.m. I dropped my daughters off with their mother for her scheduled time, Saturday to Tuesday. She got a hotel room for the night near where I live. Apparently someone died of COVID-19 in her apartment complex, so she wigged out and didn't want to stay there, and planned to spend a few nights there with our daughters. At approximately 9 p.m. I get a call from one of the hotel staff telling me that the cops had been called and that she appeared to be so drunk that she couldn't get up and was incoherent. This is from my perspective. I'll include the fuller story below. I got there as the cops were showing up and they eventually asked me to go up to the room to get my daughters and I took them home after waiting around for a bit to be excused by the officers. The fuller story, and I'm piecing this together from my 2 daughters, 7 and 4, and the hotel staff, is that they ordered a pizza and when it was delivered, she was so incoherent that the delivery driver actually called the cops because she was worried about her welfare. In the meantime, my oldest daughter became so scared that she left the hotel room and started running up and down the halls until she finally found a staff member to help her. Thank God I drilled my phone number into her. After police and fire show up, She refused all medical treatment and they left. They told me she didn't meet the bar for them to take her without consent. What are my legal options here, especially in the short term? If she demands the girls back tomorrow morning, do I have to give them up? I'm legitimately scared of what might happen in the next several days. Over the long term, I can apply for a restriction to her parenting time, and I plan on doing that ASAP. Although with this COVID-19 thing going on, I don't know what the courts look like right now. The next one is titled, Ada? For telling my wife what my son earns is none of her concern? I'm a father of two, Tom, 26, and stepdaughter, Judy, 22. Tom has a good paying job while Judy is still studying. They're both engaged to their partners and the family are expecting 2 weddings this summer. Tom started his wedding planning and he spent quite a lot of money on it. He and fiancé chose a nice venue, afford to invite many guests, and add more food options. My wife told me Judy said her stepbrother showed her the expensive venue he and his fiancé picked, and Judy thought it wasn't fair that Tom spent that much on just the venue while she and her fiancé are struggling to save up for their entire wedding. I asked my wife what that means, and she told me to think about it this way. Both Tom and Judy are getting married this summer. People, our families, will attend Tom's wedding and say it was great, but then attend Judy's wedding 3 months later and will say unlike her stepbrothers, her wedding is cheap, with no great venue or quality food and not a lot of guests to afford. Basically, comparing the two and gossiping about Judy's wedding. I said all weddings are different. Who is going to compare 2 weddings? Who does that? She told me family and friends. She said that perhaps, Tom could help his sister with money to afford a decent wedding if not equal. I laughed it off and said this is not a competition and weddings supposed to be about the couples only, not what people think. But she said Judy feels like her wedding will be less than compared to Tom's. She said we've raised both kids equal and gave them everything equal, we can't just ruin it now and cause drama. Then brought up that Tom earns a lot of money, so no harm in helping his sister by funding some of her wedding. I told her what my son earns is none of her concern, that's it. And even if he earns a lot doesn't mean he's obligated to fund other people's weddings. It's absurd. She took this as in I was being passive-aggressive and should always be encouraging Tom and Judy to help one another. Fine, but there's a difference between encouraging and pressuring one into helping the other. If this was an emergency, then yes, I'd bring it up to him, still expecting a no, but to ask him to pitch in his sister's wedding, that's overstepping the line. I frankly said I won't even bother me busy son with this none issue, but she got mad that I'm not even considering talking to him and making a bit of effort to make Judy feel less stressed and more supported in her wedding. I said no and she got extremely upset and agitated, saying I'm the one refusing to help, not Tom, and that he's an adult and can decide if he wants to help. But she's asking me to talk to him, which I'm not going to do. We're still arguing about it. A user in the comments said, NTA, the trouble with your wife's line of thinking is that there is no end. If Tom funds Judy's wedding, the precedent will be set. He'll have to make sure she gets the same quality of honeymoon, the same level of housing, the same vacations. Judy and her partner could wait until they graduate and have jobs before they wed. It's their choice to marry while still on a student's budget. Tom shouldn't be penalized for that. Another user said, NTA, your wife and stepdaughter do not have any right to demand money from Tom. How spoilt. And to be angry at you because you won't support them in their quest to demand someone else's money is just unbelievable. Life's not fair, Judy. Get over it. Tom waited until he was older with a good career to get married. She didn't. Everyone makes their own choices, now they have to live with them. My sibling didn't want to spend a lot of money on their wedding, so they had a lunchtime tea party affair with lawn games, and it was amazing. You just have to be smart with what you can or want to afford. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.